My name is Kevin McPherson Eckhoff, and my new book is called Their Biography, an organism of relationships. Kevin McPherson Eckhoff is who you'd most expect, in part because he knows you, or when he knows you rather, then you'll know him, because both of those knowings are based on knowing oneself. And so if you read the book, cut point. Kevin McPherson Eckhoff is he's just a he's just a kind of a scribble of a person he's got all the parts of a human that you'd imagine, but he's also all the parts of not the parts of a human that most humans are also. Who is Kevin McPherson Eckhoff? I've got the answer. You ready? Kevin McPherson Eckhoff is just a guy. Come on. That's all. He's just one of those people. Stop it. Stop it. I've read the book, so I should know. And if you read the book, then I'll know even more. And if you finish the book and write the book again, then I'll know the best. So thank you very much. I had many ideas not to write this book. I've written a few books before this, not writing the book. And those books I was very happy with, and I like writing and poetry and words. But sometimes doing the writing and the poetry and the words all by yourself, in a room, usually on a device of the writing with the pen or the electrons, just it feels kind of lonely sometimes, and it feels a little bit I want to say self-indulgent, but what I really want to say is a word that has more to do with self-pleasuring. But I won't say that word right at this moment. I might say it later. And so I wanted. My best friend, who is Jake Kennedy, and I have been working on another book called Death Valley, and we're collecting submissions from the Okanagan from people up and down the valley in the Okanagan, and the such a public kind of writing practice really excited me, and still does, and relational aesthetics also, and people who don't read poetry, it'd be nice for me to have them read poetry, because I write poetry, and I like people, and relating to people and interacting with those same people and any people. And so part of the book was all of that. The selection process for the potential collaborators for this manuscript, I went to people, all sorts of people, and I asked them, and I gave them invitations, and I shook their hands, and I kissed their hearts. And a lot of people were very warm about it and responded. Writers didn't really have a problem saying, I have words within me that I would like to expel into your book. But my favorite interactions were the people who, they've read Robbie Burns, and that's it. And so they were very skeptical, or very kind of tentative, and trying to convince them that their words were also words, was fun and challenging, and often they ended up rejecting not just me but poetry. Is how it makes me feel better if I frame it that way. So so I selected people kind of indiscriminately, and I also threatened some family members. I hope so. I hope there are people who feel left out. I mean, I kind of feel in some ways the most left out, which was part of my intention in retrospect, my retrospective intention. Retrograde. Retroactive. Retro balls. Their biography isn't really different from other biographies. So if you've read, any of Sophie Mackenzie's work and any of her biographies, it's basically like you've already read their biography. So it should be a very comfortable, enjoyable time for everybody. The biographies that I've read, and I've only read, I didn't quite finish Theon Fleury's autobiography. I read the back cover, and it's very comparable, I think, just the general tone and spirit, and it's about a person, and as you read the book, the person sort of moves on in the book, and you know what, I've read the back cover for this one. That's all I'm really comparing is just but I'm sure when I read the new book, it's gonna be just like the time when I read any other biography in the future. Because it's me. Not just this, but every biography. I don't know if I learned anything about the id entity in here. This book project, Making It Happen. The experience of collecting the contributions, working with them to make a me, or some people say a me of me. I think the pun of id entity is the beautiful doublespeak tongue of the most sort of amorphousness of the id, put with the concretism of the entity, which allows for the not knowing to emerge, which is really what excites me about parts of the book, is the not knowing, which is also what connects to my own identity often. So if I did learn about how much I'm not learning every day through every text, about every identity, everywhere. Okay? I'm not really sure what social construction and truth and a means. Not just in this question, I mean in any language. But I hope, rarely, I hope, and I feel, sometimes I emote, that the truth becomes indefinite within this article. And I think it feels comfortable to believe that everything is a social construction, but sometimes there are, I believe, just these transcendent kind of moments where we realize, I'm reminded that the social is not as relative as the personal, and it is a little truer maybe in some ways than the individual, but it's all relative. I like to think of this installment as volume 1 of an indefinite article volume series that, modernism and skyscrapers with identity also in there. The ongoingness of the self is a often a part of the poetry that people write and the posterity of it. And I believe that the next step for me, and it will take several more decades than this one did, of continuing this kind of like a hoedown with the self, is perhaps inviting people to contribute to the next stage of my life, which I think is death. So this takes us almost right up to that point, and then I will in the next, if it happens, if it allows me, to invite people in my life, airline pilots who I have yet to meet, disc jockeys who I have yet to meet, dog walkers who I have yet to meet. These people who intersect my life and enrich them with richness beyond riches. Those are the people who I hope will kill me in the future literary next volume, but not final volume of my poetic eternity. What's next is what's next is always, I think, the future, and I hope that I feel inside my inspired spirit, if you will, inspiritedness, that it's this, in part, this book has allowed me to return to language in a way that will be a little less sexy, less real, but ultimately more true, and in ways that is invitational, not in the production of the book, but hopefully in the production of the sense of what the book could be with the people who I love to interact with. Readers, and you. Yaroslav was a toddler under the age of 4. He was at the grocery store with his mummy. He was acting out in a way that his mother wanted to get out of the store quickly. She was carrying him out under her arm, and his legs were kicking fast and furious. Yaroslav started yelling loudly, "Help, help! This isn't my mother! I don't know her! Help me!" KME can only be defined as 65% oxygen, 18% carbon, 10% hydrogen, 3% nitrogen, 1.5% calcium, 1% phosphorus, 0.35% potassium, 0.25% sulfur, 0.15% sodium, 0.05% magnesium, 0.7% copper, 0.7% zinc, 0.7% selenium, 0.7% fluorine, 0.7% chlorine, 0.7% iodine, 0.7% manganese, 0.7% cobalt, and 0.7% iron. Kevin McPherson Eckhoff could always start a laugh off, "We've never had a quarrel, 'cause he's always with Laurel." There was a big fire. Did you read about it? The only reason I knew about it was that we took boy band pictures. In some quarters it was said that, as the lake gets drier, a big fire ant on the bottom of the kitchen made him shut the door. Unfortunately, there was asbestos found in the wreckage. Constant sarcasm blurs the separation between truth and the other shit. I was with my mother before she was born, a fetus in the womb of my grandmother, my mother's lifetime of ova developed. Half of me waits for 20 years, nurtured before time. Then some chance or predestination deigns that on a certain day my father provides that short-lived spark. Against all odds, I am born and born over again of grandmother, mother, and time. It doesn't get any better than this, only a little more hygienic and abstracted. Cut point.